So India wants to be the Vishwaguru, the world teacher. That's adorable. Because if there's one thing India is teaching the world right now, it's exactly what not to do. It's like the ultimate cautionary tale of how to take a nation blessed with resources, talent, and history and turn it into a chaotic mess of poverty, pollution, and propaganda. Let's get real for a second. India is the most populous country in the world at 1.4 billion people, nearly a fifth of humanity. But its GDP per capita is stuck at under $3,000. That's lower than Vietnam at $4,600, Indonesia at $5,400, and only slightly beating Bangladesh at $2,700, a country Indian netizens love to crap on. In fact, the average Filipino now earns nearly 3 times more than the average Indian. So while Modi is busy giving grand speeches about India's destiny as a global superpower, the reality is most Indians are still fighting over basic necessities like clean water, toilet access, and electricity. Human Development Index, India proudly sits at 134th place, sandwiched between countries like Ghana and Namibia, some of the poorest regions on Earth. By contrast, Sri Lanka, a country just emerging from an economic collapse, is ranked 78th. Even tiny Maldives, with a population smaller than some Indian cities, has a better HDI and higher literacy rates. Speaking of literacy, let's talk about education. India's literacy rate is about 77%, but that's just the headline. A 2024 ACER report revealed that over half of grade 5 students in rural India can't read a grade 2 textbook in their native language. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, 15-year-olds score among the highest in the world on math and science tests. Even Kenya is now investing heavily in free digital education, while India still struggles to ensure classrooms have actual teachers. And sanitation? Modi's government loves to brag about building toilets under the Swachh Bharat scheme. That means Clean India for those who don't know. But here's the dirty truth. Over 100 million Indians still defecate in the open. If you ever visit India and take a train ride, you will undoubtedly see someone openly defecating by the tracks. It's just a part of daily life over there. According to UNICEF, poor sanitation in India costs the economy 6% of GDP annually due to disease and lost productivity. In contrast, Cambodia, one of the poorest countries in ASEAN, has reduced open defecation from 70% to under 10% in just 2 decades. Now let's talk about gender. India ranks 148th out of 170 countries on the Global Gender Gap Index. A woman is raped every 13 minutes, according to India's own National Crime Records Bureau. Compare this with Rwanda, yes, Rwanda, where over 60% of parliamentarians are women, and gender-based violence has been declining for years. If India is the Vishwaguru, it's teaching the world how to oppress women on an industrial scale. You see, this is the thing that confuses me. Even if you're a poor nation, it doesn't mean you have to be dirty, litter everywhere, and treat women worse than cows. When China had a similar GDP to India back in 1990, they weren't littering and abusing women. And let's not forget about healthcare. India spends 2.1% of its GDP on healthcare, one of the lowest in the world. Even war-torn Syria spends more. During COVID-19, we saw the heartbreaking images, patients gasping for air outside hospitals, bodies floating in rivers, and crematoriums overflowing. Meanwhile, Cuba, a tiny Caribbean nation under decades of harsh U.S. sanctions, managed to produce its own vaccines and keep its death rate among the lowest globally. That's an embarrassment of riches to India. What about infrastructure? India is decades behind. In 2025, power cuts are still a daily reality in rural areas. Roads crumble during every monsoon, and cities flood because drainage systems haven't been upgraded since the British left. Same with the trains and tracks they run on. Compare this with Thailand, where even small towns enjoy uninterrupted electricity, clean streets, and functioning public transport. One thing I will compliment India on is their massive internet coverage. Cheap data for the uneducated masses. You really know what you're doing, Modi. Easy to manipulate and spew online propaganda and hatred, huh? Air pollution, you ask? Delhi has the honor of being one of the most polluted cities on Earth. Breathing the air there is like smoking 50 cigarettes a day. Even Lagos, Nigeria, infamous for its pollution, now has cleaner air than most Indian metros. So maybe India is teaching us something. how to poison your own people while still pretending you're an eco-friendly nation. In fact, the vast majority of the top 50 most polluted cities by particulate matter of 2.5 micrometers or less. These are very dangerous as the pollutants are small enough to enter the lung and bloodstream. Now let's turn to religious harmony, another area where India is leading the world straight into the abyss. Hindu nationalists lynch Muslims over beef rumors. Dalits are still beaten for entering temples. Christians are attacked for holding prayer meetings. Sikhs are branded as terrorists when they demand their rights. Modi's government has turned India's diversity into a ticking time bomb. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if India collapsed in the coming decades. Compare this with Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim-majority country, which somehow manages to coexist peacefully with its Christian, Hindu, and Buddhist minorities. Or Botswana, where over 20 ethnic groups live in harmony without burning each other's villages. India's big lesson to humanity seems to be, if you want endless riots and lynch mobs, just copy us. And then there's Modi himself, the self-styled strong man. He loves to talk about Bharat's glorious past and future, but under his watch, democracy is crumbling. India has dropped to 161st on the World Press Freedom Index, below Afghanistan under the Taliban. Journalists are jailed, activists are branded anti-national, and the judiciary has been reduced to a rubber stamp. Compare this with Ghana, where freedom of speech is thriving, and peaceful power transfers are routine. Economically, India loves to flaunt its $4 trillion economy dream. But let's break it down. With 1.4 billion people, that works out to an average person still struggling to afford decent housing, healthcare, and education. Meanwhile, China has lifted 800 million people out of poverty in 30 years. India, still distributing free rice to keep the poor from starving. Even Africa is moving faster. Ethiopia has built a light rail system in Addis Ababa while India's metro projects crawl forward at a snail's pace. Kenya has rolled out high-speed internet to rural areas while Indian villages still lack reliable electricity. India still insists on free high-speed rail trains from Japan as they can't afford it otherwise. And let's not ignore the brain drain. Every year, over 200,000 Indian professionals emigrate because their own country can't offer them decent pay or safety. The joke is India invests in engineering degrees so its graduates can drive Ubers in Canada. Meanwhile, India's foreign policy is a disaster. While China brokers peace in the Middle East and builds railways across Africa, India is busy alienating its neighbors. Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, they've all pushed back against India's big brother attitude. A Vishwaguru builds bridges. India just burns them. Of course, Indian nationalists love to scream, "But we sent a probe to the moon!" Great, North Korea has missiles too. A space program means nothing if 190 million Indians still go to bed hungry every night. And here's the kicker. Even Bangladesh, once mocked as basket case, now beats India in life expectancy, female literacy, and child mortality rates. Vietnam exports more electronics than India could dream of. Peru, a developing country in Latin America, has a GDP per capita 4 times higher than India's. So maybe India is teaching us something. It's showing us how nationalism, corruption, and religious hatred can drag even the most promising nation into the mud. It's a masterclass in how to squander potential while pretending you're changing the world. Here's the truth. The world doesn't need a Vishwaguru. It needs India to fix its mess first. Stop the lectures, clean up your streets, educate your kids, feed your poor. Until then, India's only lesson to humanity is this: don't do what we did. If this made you think or laugh bitterly, then hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.